talk about this. Yeah, I know I need to fix the lighting. It's got a shadow and everything. I'll work on that some other day. This is just talk. What the hell with this day? Um, so Twitter's so weird because the block and the mute stuff. I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't have it, but it does create this weird thing where, excuse me, where you think you're seeing a whole conversation, but you're not seeing the whole conversation. Um, and I just muted a word, shadow dark, because I've had enough of that shit, one way or the other. Um, but I didn't realize or had forgotten, more accurately, because I forget a lot of things lately, that I had muted a quite a laundry list of words. And it's amazing how much politics bleeds through those mutes. Maybe they don't work. I don't know. Um, but what it seems to be is that, again, is this kind of, sharks and jets, Crips and Bloods bullshit with these guys, that RPG pundit guy and everybody else. The only nerd cognito stream I ever watched, the dude was drunk and talking and just decided to start talking shit about the last time they were all talking shit. You and it's not just these guys. I've seen this sort of thing before. I've mentioned this before to the three people that listen, if you ever, but I don't want to get too deep into it, but I will tell you this. I have it's not a lot of people, well, how do I put this? I had an argument with a person who thinks they know me very well, and you'd think they would after being friends for 2 decades. But sometimes they just don't get things right. And they were arguing with me. They were upset with me because they feel that the way that I conduct myself in certain cases isn't good for selling a product, isn't good for engendering a communal spirit in, or whatever. Um, and that I like to argue that which isn't strictly true, and that I'm always trying to prove myself against some phantom that represent. I'm sorry, I look like shit. It's hotter than Hades in here, and I don't have air conditioning running well because last time I turned it up, it blew everything up. Um, but anyway, she seems to think that I'm not talking to anybody. This is fucking ridiculous. Let's see if anybody comes in. Jesus Christ. Okay. So anyway, the thing is that she says that I'm fighting this invisible phantom that represents anybody who's ever argued against me in a game, like design mechanics thing or something. Um, there were years in the past on forums, but before Twitter was, well, I think Twitter was around. I just didn't use it, but whatever. On forums where there was a lot of discussion about just game mechanics, and I found that kind of discussion fascinating until people became effing insane over it. So I call people effing insane today, in a video on Twitter, and some people were like, "Don't you think you're going a little too far? Aren't you a little over the top?" And I go, "You know what? The thing is, no." And I wish I would have done more to document how right I am. Maybe you haven't experienced this, and for a long time, this particular friend of mine continued to berate me with, "You're the one doing this. You're the epicenter of this because you have this way of communicating with people." But the fact is, it's not true. And seeing somebody attack a man when they're down and make shitty comments about their family life, apparently the way that they raise their children, the assumption and or fact, and it's none of my business, so I don't care which one it is, but discussion of divorce and all sorts of personal things, because supposedly somebody that this guy knows talked bad about some alpha dog leader of this guy. Holy shit. It's crazy. And like I say, it's not the first time I've seen it. There's a guy named Richard Werberth. He's got a couple of titles to his name as far as war game design. And this ridiculous bald lunatic posted on the internet that he wanted to break both my knees because I didn't agree with him on some shit or something. I've been doxxed more than once for an opinion over an effing game. I've seen people that I don't know personally, but I've seen on Twitch and things like that say, hey, there was this one girl who said, I want to play the Harry Potter video game. So she said she wanted to play it. And hundreds of people berated her on every online outlet that she had until she says, well, I'm just going to turn these off. I can't handle this shit. This is ridiculous. I mean, just bullied her right off the internet. And I never paid much attention to the whole bullying thing on the internet because I thought, you know what, you can just flip it off. Which other people said, hey, if you don't like what you're watching, change the channel. You know, made a comment about Carlin. I've said that too. But some of these people, whether it's for a good reason or for a bad reason or for mental health problems, they seem kind of addicted and it's their only outlet in social thing, whatever it is. Even if the person could have just walked away, having hundreds of people berate them over the desire to play a video game is insane to the max. So everybody doing this stuff today, and some of it was shot my direction, you're goofy. And I don't know how many people, but I've slowly just started blocking people that look like they're even remotely connected to these two groups, because I don't, this kind of thing doesn't appeal to me. But I am not going to just swallow some attack on my intelligence or my reputation, as little as you may think it's worth or whatever. But I'm just not going to do that. And I've had people, some of these people have taken what I've said, twisted it, and turned it into a different argument. And I've simply tried to clarify for that. Some of them have taken the opinions I've said, I've talked about, or the methods that I use to make certain things, like worlds, and berated them and belittled them. And in doing so, because they're my ideas, they're berating and belittling me. So voicing the common thread, the common statement made by several people from several different areas on this stupid thing is that if I don't like something, I don't like it. That doesn't equate to jealousy, hatred, resentment, or any other thing. I don't like broccoli. Maybe you do, maybe I don't. Why are you losing your goddamn mind if I say, you know what, I don't like broccoli? What is this? I don't like that damn game. You're going to be okay. She's going to be okay. You don't need to come after people with the vengeance of bringing up their personal lives because they don't agree with that game or they don't like it. It's going to be all right. And nobody's jealous. She's not making a fortune. This is P in the C. The last guy I talked to that gave me numbers about this sort of stuff, he made a couple $1,000s for raising 25,000. Who cares? Good for them. I don't care. But but I just can't believe what I've been seeing, and I shouldn't be surprised because, like I said, I'll tell you one of the other ones the guy told me one time. I had a guy follow me across several platforms. Why? Because I told him that, what is it? What's the name of that one? Flames of War. And it was a little bit of a dig, but Jesus, come on. I said, Well, Flames of War is kind of more like a military themed game than a war game, because which is a little bit of a shitty dig, but holy shit, this guy was posting my address across multiple forums and was replying to everything I said on them. I said, okay, fuck, forget this guy. I'm going to turn this one off and I'll go find another one because I wanted to talk about the stuff. And this guy just stalked me to the point where I had to call up the people who ran the forum who were allowing it to happen, and I called the police in their area, and because this guy, I was starting to get to the point where this is no longer trolling. I had a wife at the time. She's afraid the guy's going to show up at her house, so I finally had to get police involved. Wow. It's just been absurd. So, and these are things that have happened over the years. And at one point, I documented them all and I put them on a blog. And my wife at the time says, "Don't you dare publish that. You'll get sued. If you want to be a business, if you want to sell a product in this game space, don't do that. That's But now I wish I had kept that stuff." Because you wouldn't believe the shit that people do on the internet, and it's been like this for a long time. And this is just over games. Wow. So, but I think the biggest thing with the Shadow Dark is that people have translated. My beef isn't so much with the game. Here's what I did about the game. Here's my question: why this went out of any other than BX get so much hype? That's all. Just curious. The other one is that there was a couple of mechanics in the game that I've seen consistently be, that sucks, that makes a game play bad, that's a complicated mechanic. But somehow in this game, it's okay. And I was like, oh, wonder why that is. Those were the two questions. And they, holy God, you're just jealous. Everybody resents success. All that crap. Then I was a commie. And just got worse and worse. And when you see, everybody who uses Twitter long enough can recognize a bot account. And I started getting bot account replies over this. And that's what the lady I talked about, the young girl that got attacked for the Harry Potter game, that's what they were doing. They were just flooding her with bots, and they were all saying nasty things and stuff like that. It's like vote brigading. They do that on well, they gatekeep it very well now, but in years past, they used to vote brigade on Reddit. Oh, that guy says something we don't like. And they would just get the usual gang of people to just thumbs down that shit till it's censored off. Which one? What? Oh, which Harry Potter game? I don't remember the gal's name. I didn't know her. I watched her once. And the only reason I watched her is because people were attacking her. It was that the game about the school. It was kind of like a first-person computer RPG. They were selling it on the consoles. I think it had a PC version too. I forget the name of it. But she was some anime Twitch, streamer. They had a fairly large following, and they handed the hell out of her until she left. She just goes, I can't, I'm just not going to be on the internet when people treat me this way. Oh, the one that came up was the which mechanic was it? Was the torches. Somebody had told me that they really liked it because they had this, had this thing where it's tense because your torch has a certain amount of time, certain amount of rounds or whatever. And I go, well, that's funny because I've seen a lot of people always talk about that sort of thing as being too fiddly, being too complicated. It's something they don't want to track. It's just easier to kind of abstract it. But in this one, they thought it was a great idea. And I said, so what I was saying to people, I says, that's fine. But and this may have upset people. It wasn't meant to, but I says, it's all of what I was trying to illustrate is I brought out a bunch of products that weren't really gaming products, but I brought out old products from the past. like the pet rock. And I says, sometimes marketing can sell something that otherwise would seem unpleasant. And perhaps the marketing has got people buying this game, even though there's mechanics that generally are not accepted. And I think everybody just said, well, you're calling us suckers. Because I kind of was, I says, look, here's a pet rock. I took out the most extreme example where people were paying $3.95 in 1975 for a rock. That's about $30 in cash today. It was incredible that somebody had figured out a way to get people to jump on a bandwagon where they were they were buying a rock with a little bit of dry grass on its head and calling it a pet. So I brought that up because I says you can get people to buy some crazy stuff. The other one I brought up was that more people might be familiar with because it's not that ancient, but back in the 90s or late 80s, there was this thing called slime. It was a toy. And it just looked like a giant thing of snot. It came in a little plastic garbage can. And when you pulled it out, it felt slimy and gross. And I'm not really sure what you were supposed to do with it other than throw it at girls and make them go, ee, that's what guys were doing in school with it, I'm sure. But it was a fairly, it didn't last very long, but it was fairly successful. And a lot of people I knew were buying it for their kids and stuff. Turns out it was toxic. If you put it on your skin for too long, it would cause, problems in that. But that was another one where I remember saying to myself, they've actually conned people into paying retail price for boogers. So marketing can do that sort of thing. And apparently this thing was marketed. But the other thing I brought up was the fact that I saw a lot of what were clearly bought accounts shilling for it. And I thought, well, who's paying for that? Who's paying for the bots that are doing that sort of thing? And then I had people saying to me, well, you're a conspiracy theorist. That kind of thing doesn't happen. I says, what the hell are you talking about? Shit. For 2 years of my life, all I ever heard on Twitter and everywhere else is that the Russians are using bots to make me hate America or whatever the fuck that was all about. You can go to the internet. I put it out on a video on Twitter that you can I went and searched it out. You can pay for bots. You can pay for followers. They can be automated. You can even pay other people to follow you, like actual human beings. You can also pay for testing. I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but I said there was a lot of bot accounts that were shilling for this, and I wonder what that's about. And people said, that's nonsense. That can't happen. I said, yeah, you can buy testimonials. You can buy a company that will have people go and write what you want them to write in review of your product on Amazon and stuff like that. So, and I showed the sites because that can happen. So, but that brings me back to what I was saying about the girl and the Harry Potter, because a lot of that was bots. And I see the same thing with the Acolyte. Everybody who hates people that don't like the Acolyte, we're all a racist and a bigot and a fascist and all that. And a lot of that kind of vitriol that gets thrown at people comes from bot accounts or sock puppet accounts, same thing, whatever. Yeah, I don't. It's an easy enough thing. There's some people that they balk at the idea of doing any type of record keeping, and so they immediately take anything that requires that kind of effort and translates it to, well, that's too complicated. That bogs the game down. It's unwieldy, and I've seen that comment made by several people about products over the years, and I thought, well, I wonder what changed people's mind that they tolerate it inside this product. And again, that's just marketing. It looks good and it plays good or whatever it is. I'm sure that's what most people say. So that mechanic is okay, or it was just worded in a better way. Sometimes it may just be that. If you take Osric versus the original 1E, there's a lot of people go, I don't want to play that 1E shit, and then they take a look at that, and all of a sudden it's a lot less cryptic. It makes more sense. It's laid out better. So they go, oh yeah, okay, now I get it. So just maybe that. Yeah, that's the part I don't get. It's not, okay, it's not to my taste. All right. Why can't, not everything's for everybody. Why did that translate with so many people into being jealous or being hateful or, or having it be some sort of personal offense against the lady who made it? I don't even know her name. I don't know her from Adam. I have no animosity towards her. I don't care. You know, I'm not going to go buy a Hyundai anytime soon either. I don't hate everybody who made the Hyundai. So what the hell? Why is that? And it seemed that in some places it was almost coordinated, that there was a litany of these uh, bots. And I thought, well, who are there that many people running alt accounts? Maybe. Is there somebody that's supportive of this product to the extreme because they're one of these very obsessed people, like the kind of people that told me they want to break my kneecaps because I didn't like um, you know a particular mechanic in wargaming, that kind of thing. Well, so right, what Venger said, but what I found out was, because I wasn't paying attention, but a lot of the attacks on Venger are framed in the discussion around Shadow Dart, but what they really are is it's and I can't believe I have to talk about this as an adult who has an ARP card. I'm just talking about RPGs. This seems so dramatic and silly, so 90210. But apparently the fact is that all those people on the Basic Experts server, he's got that gilded server. They're all in this clique that hate everybody who hangs out with RPG Pundit and Venger and what's that guy's name? Ryan Davis, whatever that little. And so it's like this gang warfare over the internet, and they're all, one side's pissed because they said the other side started up the fight again or the feud or whatever. So one guy that follows me, I don't even hardly even talk to. He apparently is in on this, and he's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, everything's off the, it's okay now. Everything's off the table, including making remarks about whether uh, Venger is a good father to his children." Come on, man. It's just a game. I mean, that when I saw that one, and it was that crafty Matt guy who generally is an asshole to begin with. Um, I thought, you guys really are a bunch of childish shits. But I got this from people who were in their 50s and 60s back 20 years ago when I was on the forum, just acting like adolescent bully 14-year-old kids over games. So I'm not all that surprised. But holy shit. Yeah. Yeah. Going out, it made a meme out of it. Uh, Saying that Pundit or Ryan Davis, one of the two, had taken Venger out by bringing up his apparently, and I don't know if it's true or not, but something about divorce, something about his kids, all the, I mean, just a bunch of girly shit, and how awful. Right. I somebody said that Crafty Matt, maybe it was him himself, because I was on a live stream with him once, and it's the funny thing, you know, not to get all tough guy and all that stuff, but it really does change the complexion of a conversation when you're face to face. Even video face to face changes things from text. People aren't as bold, and the guy didn't go after me like he did when we were in text. And he was all right. He was friendly enough, and that may have just been respect for the person who was hosting the live. But he said something about having overcome a stroke or something like that, and that can significantly change personality. So maybe that's it. Um, but he seemed like an arrogant douche. in text, and he wasn't so bad in the live, but after that, he seemed like even a worse asshole. And doing that to a guy, this is just crazy. So that's why I came out and said what I said, and I just said, you know, it's not the game, it's not the gal, but it's the people that are acting like it's some golden calf to worship and are attacking anybody that has even the slightest criticism. I'm just not into it. I wasn't into it before, and I didn't have any hatred towards it. And I still really don't, but I don't want to hear about it. I don't, you know, now I really am turned off by it. That kind of, uh, you know, that's not positive press for her or her product to have these maniacs doing that, even if it's in defense of it. You'd think she might want to speak up and tell them to pipe down about it, you know. So, but none of them argue the merits of the game. None of them had said, "Well, here's why it's a great game." They just said either you say it's a great game or you're all these horrible things. Very Sparkle Troll like. So, um, but God, everybody was saying stuff to me. Hell, even Rob Kuntz was like, "I think you're." To me, he says you're going overboard by calling them cultists, and I was like, "Really? Maybe I don't think so." And that was before they started attacking the guy's personal life. Now I'd like to take that meme and just show it to everybody. Said, and in fact, I did. I said, "This is why these guys are being called cultists, because that's just crazy." Right, right. That whole group. I mean, even Victor got involved, and he was like the last one that was decent. But then he came out, and he didn't say it directly to me, but they were kind of being passive aggressive in that they'd post not to anybody, but they would post right after people said something, including myself. And Victor came out right after I said something. It just something about sour grapes. And I said, you guys are all just, I didn't say it to him, but I thought it's it's like some bully and his little entourage of people, and they're just acting ridiculous. So I thought I'd have enough of this shit. But yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Like all I like I said earlier, I asked those questions. I was interested in to know why this thing had that appeal based on what I knew of it, and was interested in knowing that. And I did find some of the bot activity curious. That was it. Other than that, I wasn't inclined to buy it, but I wasn't inclined to go around and hate on it either. Okay, it's just another one of those clones. Great. And I was in Delver's thing, and he said, and everybody agreed. Not my cup of tea, but more power to her. Congratulations. Glad she got the award, and it's doing fine. I've got no problem with that. I'm not mad at her or her game. I'm mad at the people that, well, I'm not mad anymore. I just don't give a shit. But I just, the people who were attacking me over having an opinion or asking a question, that's the part of it that got me. What the hell's going on? Why are these people acting like they're defending their mother's honor? And so, but the basic expert guy is the one who really blew his top. There's a dude who he was always kind of a little arrogant, and he was a little bit, but then he changes his bio to like he decided to, like he was Hulk Hogan with the NWO all of a sudden. I'm not a wrestling fan anymore, but I'm sure you understand the reference. He went heel, and he's even and now he's just an absolute asshole to people. I said, I don't need this. I came to I went to Twitter some years ago because I got tired of hearing about it. Well, I didn't tired, but I was like, I keep hearing about this. Let's just see how bad it really is. And I farted around with it for a while and just nothing. And then the 2020 riots came along, and all of a sudden it became a source of information with all the live streamers. And then I decided to get into creating games, and so I used the same account as a means to try to promote my games, which was probably a big mistake. And I don't know if it's worth it. Yeah, those guys, Jesus God, and that's the same thing I was telling people. Cal staff had put out something about time and Raw, and I don't know if he really considers himself Broser. He's very rarely on Twitter, and he seems fairly rational to me, comparative. But anyway, I said, here's the thing. I wanted to make a video about timekeeping because I'm doing a campaign in Greyhawk and I wanted to discuss it. And I was saying, I go, because of what those brosers did with all that, you bring up timekeeping to people and they don't want to hear anything about it because they naturally associate the entirety of that conversation with brosers who are complete assholes about it. And maybe if it wasn't for the brosers, they might at least go, well, okay, I'll consider it. I'll think about it. I'll hear what you have to say and investigate it. But now they're like, I know those guys, fuck that thing. And so if you look at, I mean, it's not being sold, but if you look at Raw as a concept or Time as a concept, as a product, they've ruined the product by their incessant, insane shilling for it. And I think that some of the people that are being exceptionally harsh to anybody who has a criticism of Shadow Dark, they may think they're fighting for their favorite label or whatever as a fanboy, but what they're really doing is people going, hey, if they're this fanatic, maybe I should stay away from it. They're just chasing people away. Sometimes I wonder if maybe that's what the ultimate goal is. Maybe it's, I sound paranoid, but there's so much weird activity. Who knows? But I was just like, I thought, wow, man, maybe more and more people are looking at Twitter and thinking, maybe I should just step back from this. It doesn't seem to be effective in any way to promote a product. It doesn't seem to be anything but a time sink. I find myself doing the same thing. As much as I bad talk what's going on in there, it's like a soap opera. Every once in a while, I can't stop looking at stuff. I keep waiting for that next fix where somebody's following me and I actually get something out of it. But rarely do I actually get anything out of it. So maybe I should just stop. Right. Yeah, it could just, when people, it's like how do you say it? Sometimes I had a friend who was a reformed smoker. Here's a good example. I knew I was going to get into religion. I thought I better not get into religion, just start more trouble. But I had a reformed smoker. Guy smoked and quit. Good for him. But instead of just going, hey, I quit, making a small conversation out of it, and then moving on, this dude was like a born again. And he just wouldn't shut up about it. And he did everything he could to try to encourage you to take the steps he did. And he may have thought he was being a saint for doing that. But doesn't matter how good it is for you, if somebody's trying to ram it down your throat, you instinctively, want to spit it back up. And that's what these guys are doing with D&D, and with everything. So, and I see it with everything else. I saw a guy that was a video game guy, and he's fighting the woke, and whatever that is, I don't even want to get. But the people on the other side of it had gotten into his wife's Twitter and started posting personal pictures that he had put on his. This is why you shouldn't do this, of course, but nonetheless. They started posting the stuff everywhere. He said, my wife is terrified. She's in tears and I want you to stop. And, so it's not just the thing. Right. Yeah, I know. Yeah, yeah, it's gotten very odd. Um, I just don't understand it. And yeah, I mean, I've been into even decades ago where you kind of get a little bit harsh with somebody, or the debate gets intense, lengthy, or heated. But nobody would ever think to make it personal or go taking pictures of your children and spreading them around to other people. That's borderline criminal shit. God. So, and that's why I mentioned Jonestown. I said, it's like these people are cultists. And that's when Rob Coots says, you're going too far. And I says, am I though? When they're doing stuff like this? You know, I don't think I am. I think that's exactly what they are. Yeah. So so I got a friend now that's saying, you, what I need to do is stop talking about it and start being the exact opposite of what these people are, and start attract. And she's right, and start attracting people for all the good reasons, because they're so fed up with listening to all these assholes beef about dumb things. Right, right. Or or this crusade to, yeah, they become berserkers, and not in a good way, but that vindictiveness to try to harm people, based on ideology. Wow, bad news. So, and I've seen it, like I said, I've been a victim of it, just from people who are being silly. But I don't have a family to get involved. I don't have any children, so I can't imagine how that makes, that's just another level that I could never even dream of having to deal with. It'd be horrible. So there ought to be something done about it. As much as I love free speech, there ought to be more done about people that do this sort of thing online. But such it is. But I still keep seeing people going, well, you're just a hater and you're just jealous of Shadow Dark. Nah, it's not about that. Just had some questions. But um, but that's good for her. That's great. Everybody will, like one person said, this should be a good news for everybody, because it might bring more people into the hobby. It might bring more people into the indie side of things. Great. I hope they like what I'm making. uh, we'll see. If I ever get it out. So, but yeah. Oh, other than that, we're just, and it's so weird. It online is all bad, but there really is something about Twitter, because I go over to other places. I've got myself a Discord server, and nothing like this is going on. Everybody's just playing games and having fun. Of course, I don't have a Discord server where everybody's socializing on the thing, typing either. Maybe it'd be a different vibe if that was happening. They just show up to play the games, and we use the microphone as a means to play. But it's a totally different dimension. I had one guy today say, hey, I'm glad you did this and got me to play, because I went into my attic and pulled all my 2E stuff out, and I haven't touched it in years. And he put his whole collection out on a bed and took a picture of it, and he says, because I'm playing with you, I'm gonna start using this stuff again. And that was pretty cool. Yeah, I don't get that dude at all. And I didn't spend much time talking to him. He did follow me. He did seem like he was encouraging at first. And then I made a mistake of listening to people like the basic expert about him. So I kind of left him alone. But then I came back to him, and I, I don't know, man. He seems a little bit too arrogant in himself. I watched a little bit of him on live once, and he was the guy looks maybe 10 years younger than me, maybe more, or yeah. And he was dressed like like my grandpa was dressed, which yeah, you dress any way you wanted, but he also had uh, a pipe that he was smoking. And I thought, do you really smoke a pipe, son? And it wasn't like a modern pipe. It was, and I said, are you trying to smoke that? I didn't say to him specifically, but I said to myself, I go, is this dude trying to smoke that pipe because he thinks it makes him look more sophisticated or intelligent? Or is he just cutting up? I don't know. But I, I haven't, he's, he's another one that seems arrogant. He always talks about how much he's accomplished, but I've never seen anything he's printed ever. I'm sure it's out there. I don't specifically look for it, but I don't, he talks of this great game about how he's resurged, been a catalyst for resurgence and certain things. And I single-handedly saved this part of the industry or whatever. Never heard of you until I got to Twitter. So, I mean, I'm old enough that I met all the big guys. I've met Rob before in face to face, and Zeb Cook, and all these guys. Mike Carr, Gary. Uh, so didn't hang out with them or anything like that. I played a lot of games with Mike Carr. That was about it at Gen Con. But I knew them all. I mean, I met them all. And, Mike would recognize me because he saw me every year. But, I don't know who the hell he is. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. If he's jealous of her success, then these people should direct that statement towards him. But they appear to be broadcasting it at anybody who has any, it's not really my thing. And they just go after them. What the hell? Basic Expert. He's one of them that's big onto that. You're single handed. Yeah, the statements that I've seen come out of him just, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I maybe it's some form of. I mean, I don't want to get, like mental. What's the way they're putting it now? Neurodivergency, where your passion starts to bleed into ridiculous obsession. If you're so intense about something that you're making comments like that, um, maybe you need whatever the modern equivalent of Thorazine is. I don't know, but he's made some doozies. But I couldn't help laughing when I saw him on that smoking on that pipe. I mean, maybe he just smokes a pipe, but it sure looked to me like I almost thought of it as seeing bubbles coming out of it, like the like the kids used to do. Oh shit! So, uh, yeah, but anyway, beyond. Yeah, yeah. I'm sure that. I mean, I think you've mentioned before that you know, that you have some pain problems and there's some management that's done, and that's fine. You know, I'm hip, but it just seemed to me like the thing was a prop. Like he was trying to indicate that he had some sort of um, that he was trying to make himself look more adult or more sophisticated or intelligent um, by by smoking the pipe. Like it was at the Playboy Mansion with Hefner, that kind of thing. And it was like, bro, who the fuck? You're on a live about RPGs. So it just kind of looks silly to me. But uh, but that's all I've ever seen of him is that. I had a couple of rounds with him on Twitter, and then I would just block the hell with him. So, but uh, I just want to put the thing to bed because, and in fact, I actually muted Shadow Dark. And again, not out of hate of her or her product, but just because the word is intertwined with all this insanity. Um, and I got my own things, and I was really enjoying being able to play. I like a good conversation about these games as long as it's rational and in depth. But I much prefer playing them. I've been able to play Star Wars, West End game Star Wars fairly regularly, which is one of my personal favorites. I have a real passion for Star Wars, um, and I love that game. Knew Scott Palter, uh, and really enjoyed it. Now I'm playing ODD Greyhawk because I just thought it was neat to play the original game for the 50th anniversary, just kind of as a tip of the cap. I mean, it's almost incomplete comparatively to 1E, but it just for shits and grins and kind of, acknowledge. There you go. Yeah, just just act like you're. What was that guy's name that used to do that? The old British guy in the documentaries. I can't think of his name. Another guy that used to do it was Edgar R. Burroughs. You could do him, act like, yes, I'm the sophisticated RPG. I don't. It's Jesus. Yeah, I didn't. I I made a passing comment about it, and I got it. I got out of my session with Greyhawk, and I'm just inundated with all this vitriol towards me about making an innocent comment about Shadow Dark. And so I just kind of tried. I don't know why everybody's so mad, but all I meant was this. And it kind of spiraled into getting my dander up with people. And I thought, what the hell are you doing? All you're doing is throwing gasoline on this thing. So I just muted Shadow Dark. And I thought, I'll just wrap it up with this and kind of talk about fun stuff afterwards. But I did bring it up briefly because I was hoping that some people would see it. And I just thought, you got to understand that whoever these people are, they get so mad. Not everybody's going to like it. It's just not that big of a deal. I have used chainmail with OD&D, and it was way back. It was prior to 1980. And as much as what I wanted to do was take players that had never done this and take them back to that time, in that we were going to play the old way with the original book and all that. But I stopped at chainmail because it's one thing to have fun looking into the past. It's another thing to try to tackle that monster with people that have never touched it, because it's such a mystery. Chainmail isn't in just the chainmail book. Parts of the rules are all over in these different magazines, like Panzerfaust and Europa magazine and stuff like that. And I knew it would go from, hey, this is neat, this is the way the old guys did it, to this is ridiculous, and I feel like I'm trying to put together a stereo set from scratch. So I dropped the chainmail. Just to keep the thing rolling. But I have used it. Yeah, it's a different vibe. You can die real fast, like almost, if you go against the wrong thing at the wrong time, you could get one shot killed. At least the way we used to play it. But yeah, it's really confusing, and you really need to have all the magazines to make heads or tails out of all of it. I've seen some people go, "Oh, I'm going to try it. I'm going to try." I've looked into it, and the Basic Expert, he's another one who said, "Oh, I read all about it. Now I know all about it, and I'm a full expert in chainmail." But no, not really. Mm. But it's an interesting way to do things. But there is an alternative combat system in OD&D that's a little bit closer to 1E that makes things better. Uh, Yeah, it is going to be a big thing in mine. Or, well, potentially, I should put it that way. It depends on player choice, but it could happen. And um, what I'm going to do is it's in Greyhawk, so I'm going to pull out Greyhawk Wars and take that and modify it so that the units make sense, and I have a different map that can work with it. So I've just kind of use a variation of that boxed game, because I know that the people will be they may not be familiar with that, but they would at least be more comfortable with it, because it's probably a product that they're at least, they go, oh yeah, I recognize that, you know. So that's why I'm going to do it. But normally, what I would do is I would either use chainmail, or I'd go back and use uh, Battle System or something like that. But the only reason I would use Battle System is because uh, I would referee it. I the hard part about selling Battle System to people is go, oh, that's so complicated and blah blah blah. And I says, yeah, but you got a referee. It's not like you're playing with your buddy across a miniatures table and you have to do it all yourself. All you have to do is make the decisions that you want to make to, move your armies around. As far as calculation and all that, you got a DM to do it, so it makes it a lot easier to use. That's the kind of thing I do. Now I'm making my own, because usually when you pull out something like Battle System, you never get to the part where you can say, hey, it's not that bad because I'm going to do it for you. Most people go, yeah, I remember that. I don't want any part of that. So what I did is I made my own version of, I made a light version of Chainmail, where all the rules are inclusive instead of having to search around um, for all these old magazines. And it's got everything that Chainmail's got, but just not, as intense. So I've got um, I've got man to man. I've got small skirmish groups that would be more like something you could use in the RPG, and then the mass battles, but all in just a couple of pages and stuff like that. There'd be more pages if you wanted more army lists, which I'm going to make later on. So I've got that one. I honestly, I have everything. Like the real stuff, I had it from back in the day. I've never had, so I don't have to go on eBay to buy this stuff. So I've never had a real need for a clone. So I really couldn't even answer that. Um, I've got everything all the way up to second edition. All first edition, all original D&D. I've got all of Beck Me. I've got all of Moldvay. I've got it all. So the only time I ever played a clone, other than breaking open the Shadow Dark just to read through it, because somebody I knew had it, um, I played Basic Fantasy with a guy for about half a year. We were on a Greyhawk type campaign in the Wild Coast. It was all right. That's what I would probably just say, hey, go ahead and use that. It's the cheapest, and it's close enough to the original. I always looked at it's kind of weird to me that this whole thing has turned into a cottage industry. I always looked at a retro clone as being, I don't want to pay $1,000 for this thing on eBay because it's a collector's item. Here's, this isn't really BX, but it's BX. It's just, I put the V there and the and there and changed a few things so I won't get sued, but it's the same game. So, and I think Basic Fantasy is pretty much the same game as BX. So that's what I would go for. And again, because it's free, you can download it and all the supplements, all the updates, and a bunch of the adventures for it for free. Yep, yep. I had Monstrous Compendium or whatever, that big 3-ring, that white 3-ring binder, and I had the players set. It was like a plastic case that had all the fighter stuff in it. I still have that in the shrink wrap. And I was getting that sent to me by the guy that gave me all my TSR stuff, which is my uncle. My uncle worked with TSR, and he got me everything they made. He would give it to me for my birthday and for Christmas every year. But I didn't like Second E. I'm an old guy, so and they were making more war games again when Second E came out. So I asked him, I said, Tony, can you stop bringing me that stuff and start bringing me, I wanted, uh, you know, all the old war games they were making. They were making SPI stuff and putting the TSR tag on it, and I wanted those copies. So I stopped getting it. But yeah, I got everything else. So, but I probably just tell them Basic Fantasy. It's really the only one I'm familiar with, and it's free, and I love free. So it was good. It was like playing BX. Um, but as far as I've never seen a retro clone of the mass battle rules. So if you weren't going to use battle system or chainmail, I would probably go. If you go on the internet and search around, you can find a couple of homemade ones. I don't have the names of them right offhand, but they're pretty good. And basically, what somebody did is do the same thing that Gary and Dave did with chainmail. Is they said, okay, here's some medieval miniatures rules that we have. Let's add in dragons and orcs and stuff like that, and they work pretty good. There is a I don't know how legitimate this is because I'm not a lawyer, but what it is somebody took um, chainmail and all the articles and all the rules that were in the articles that are missing and put them into a Word document format and put them on script that you can download for free. I don't know if that violates, WotC's IP or not, or if anybody cares, but it's out there and it's called Chainmail 4th edition or something like that. That might be a way to go too if you don't mind taking it. I don't know. I don't think it would be an IP violation, but I'm no lawyer to know for sure. So, but yeah, that's the way I do something like that. But I'm making all these old war games for myself. The other thing I want to do is I got tired of hearing people say, "Oh yeah, I remember ASL," and it was and they weren't all of that wrong. Advanced Squad Leader is an old war game, and it's pretty tough. It's a shit. That rule book looks like a phone book from New York or so. It's real thick. So I was just making kind of retro clone versions of those for people to play in. Um, Old World War II stuff and Cold War stuff, things like that. Because I got tired of people shooting down my Avalon Hill games and stuff like that. I keep saying, hey, you want to play some old Avalon Hill? That stuff's too complicated. Okay. So that was the other stuff I'm trying to print up. So I've got medieval miniatures. They're historical, and I've got medieval miniatures that are more like chainmail. And then some ancients and stuff like that too. Stuff like that. So that's what else. What else am I doing? I'm building a world online. I mean, the world isn't going to be online, but I'm doing it online. I do a stream every week where I get people to come in and just shout out all ideas on the chat, and I have a map laid out. I've got a co-host, and we just go along the map and go, okay, what do you think this should be about? What does this town do, or what's the story here? And we go across the whole map trying to create our own uh, campaign setting. And then when we're done, we're going to, play it as a campaign game. Yeah. Yeah. That 28 millimeter shit it's just ridiculous. And, uh, converting to a different scale, different ground scale isn't real hard anyway. So you want to play bold action with 1/72 scale, stuff or whatever's cheap or even old World War II. We used to do that. I didn't want to pay for all that stuff. I didn't have the money to pay for it, even if I did want to. So we'd just go to the dime store and get the big bag of soldiers. Of course, you have to pick through them and take the tank that's too small out and shit like that. But then we just use those for miniatures. But I've kind of forgot about Operation White Box. I'd like to take a look at that. I haven't bought it yet. I haven't bought much because I don't have a lot of money, but I'd love to have a look at that. Just be curious. But that's the kind of thing I'm trying to do, trying to marry RPG rules and concepts with old war games like ASL so that it wouldn't be as difficult for people to play. War games are completely different if you have a GM for them. You don't, I mean, all the complexity things goes away. If I do all that stuff and calculate the armor, the armor versus penetration or whatever it is, and all you have to do is wait for me to give you an answer and you roll the die, that makes it a lot easier and funner to play for people. So I wanted to do that, but so far I haven't been able to get anybody to test it with me. I keep trying to get Die in Place to do it, but I don't think he says he doesn't have the time. Yeah, the Army List thing, that's another one. That's really where you make it with people these days. See, when I played war games back in the day, you just bought a book and it had everything in it. It was, there was kind of a different way of doing it. If you had somebody that was into recon or communication, there would just be some rules for recon and communication. You could paint the miniatures up to make them look like that, but there wouldn't be any expressly. I don't remember anybody having special rules for stuff like that. But these new games, everybody's got a personality. It lends itself to being RPG with that. So I'd love to take something like Bolt Action and just make an RPG out of it, or at least a hybrid war game where it's not, you're like a sergeant controlling a squad of NPCs or something like that. Yeah, man, I seen these. So before that ever came out as a big, well, maybe people were doing it and I didn't know, but the first time I saw it was a bunch of regional employees and the regional manager for 40K in Downers Grove, Illinois. This had to be 25 years ago. And we went down. I had a store at the time, and the retailers meeting, the regional retailers meeting was in Downers Grove, Illinois, south of Chicago. And we went to it was an Games Workshop office right next to this friendly local game store. I forget the name of it. It was a pretty cool place. It looked like everything looked like it was wood. It had wood floors and everything. Looked like an old medieval British building, but it was part of a strip mall. Anyway, so you go behind it, and there was this Warhammer 40K office, and they took us back there to have the conference. And I'm expecting to see Titans and stuff, really cool. So that stuff was there, but the first thing I saw was a full scale Army 1950s whatever. The Army came out with new maps for all of Europe, and they had the Normandy section laid out, and they were playing that Warhammer World War II, but they were doing it with 1/32 scale models on the floor. So like a half track was like 8 inches long or whatever. It looked like G.I. Joe or bigger. It was so cool, man. I was like, oh, you guys are into World War II. And they're like, yeah, we're doing the World War II thing. And I think a lot of those guys ended up leaving the company and joining the battlefront for Flames of War. Oh yeah, we used to use 1/32. We used to go. We being some buddies of mine down in Kenosha, Wisconsin, we would go to the beach and we'd play North Africa campaigns with 1/32 stuff. There's two companies we bought from. One was called 21st Century Toys, and they made plastic stuff. And then there was one called Forces of Valor, and their stuff was kind of more like die-cast metal. It was neat. They're giant 1/32. We'd play with a 25-foot tape measure, and the moves would be in feet instead of in inches. We had this whole like football field of a beach to play on, and we'd go and bring little terrain like sandbag bunkers and make stuff out of the sticks and all that, and just play a big war game. We had a box. I think it was the bottom of an Axis and Allies box that we'd bring out there, and we'd put a rock in it so the wind wouldn't blow it away, and we'd set it down. We'd roll our dice on that. Yeah, we used to play outside all the time because we're in Wisconsin. You only get about 3 good months of decent weather, so we took advantage of it, played that way. But yeah, I always played war games. A lot of them in sandboxes or on sand, but yeah, they're fun. I wish I get more people to play them. But everybody gives you that, well, that stuff takes too long. It sounds too complicated. They've got all these cliches and tropes and stuff. And that's why I'm pushing the RPG stuff. Because I have tried to explain to them, it's not that hard, but they hear it day in and day out. Anytime you've heard somebody talk about wargaming, you've probably heard the word complexity or tedium or something like that. It's hard to convince people otherwise. But make kind of a pseudo military RPG out of it. It seems like the rules might be a little bit easier to digest and stuff like that. A lot of people don't. They go, well, why would you want to do that? You can't. It's not like other RPGs where you can gain experience and get stuff for it. But actually, that's not true. You can gain experience, and that brings you up in rank, and it gives you a better chance to hit and stuff like that. As far as getting like treasure or something equivalent thereof, well, there's raiding caches, getting captured weapons. There's a system of incentives that come with if you play well, if your mission goes well, then the higher ups behind you will go, these guys are good, support them more, and they'll give you upgrades and weapons or more support units or something like that to take on bigger missions and things like that. So it's just a different style, but I'd love to do it. I have a couple of old ASL scenarios set up that I'm going to do with RPG ideas as soon as I get RPG people to do it, or war game people, either way. But it's not that different from 40K. There's a little. The biggest difference is shit moves around a lot more. I remember playing 40K second edition, and you might have a motorbike or something like that can move halfway across the table or something like that. But usually there wasn't a lot of maneuver. But with a tank war game, there can be a lot more movement before. In fact, some people get bored because nothing happened. Some of the scenarios start where you're too far away to start shooting. And the idea is you want to position yourself to get a good shot on people. And they get bored because it doesn't happen right away. But again, if you have a GM or a DM or whatever you want to call it, doing it for you, it picks up the pace and it makes it easier. So that's what I was hoping to say. I did it a couple of times with a couple of people, and I've got it on video, and I should put it on my channel. I've kind of been lacking when it comes to the YouTube channel. I should be more motivated because I've got a lot of stuff that I can be putting up there, but it's just editing is exhausting. So, and I need a lot of it because I'm not very smooth when I make these things. So, but yeah, I did a D&D, or not D&D, but I did a role-playing, my own role-playing game system, but I used role-playing game to do a D-Day scenario back in June. when it was the D-Day anniversary. And I had some players playing. I had one gal that was crying. She goes, I didn't expect it to be this dramatic or whatever. So what happened is her squad was moving up on this machine gun pit. It was very Private Ryan. And two of her people got hit. One guy got hit in the ankle, and he was all right. I mean, as all right as you can be for being hit in the ankle. But he crawls up to the other guy who got hit in the gut. And the medic that they had for the squad didn't survive the jump. So they didn't have anybody but some real basic first aid. So they get the machine gunner. They kill the German machine gunner. And then they come back to the guy who's gut shot. He didn't die right away. I had my system, people can bleed out and stuff like that. So they're trying to save his life, but they don't have anybody that knows very much other than to seal the wound and disinfect it. So they all stood around and kind of watched the guy lose it. And this gal starts weeping about it. She goes, "That's what," they all have names and stuff. So, and I think that makes wargaming more interesting, to make it more like a role playing game, or more like a movie than just, the normal way. So that's what I'm hoping more people will do. But I filmed that. Hopefully I found or taped it. We were doing it on VTT. So hopefully I can find the part where the gal starts weeping, because I thought, boy, that's a testimonial. I think I've hit the RPG gold when I can evoke emotion in role playing, right? I thought that was pretty neat. So, but she got real invested in her guys. Her guys all had names and ranks, and I even put in origin. Not like a huge backstory, but it was, Jimmy Smith's from, Chicago, Illinois, or whatever. Everybody had a backstory, something like that. So just make them personal. Try to make them real people instead of just little soldiers that you push around. So that was a neat night. That was fun. And all they did is they were jumping into France, and they were supposed to take out a radar station. Like I say, it's, kind of Private Ryan stuff, but it was fun. And I thought you could do that with anything. You do that with any war game. You could turn into that, even the ones that are big. If it's a real big war game about, pushing around divisions or armies or stuff like that, the role playing would be is you're the general in the command center, and you're making decisions, and you're getting the reports, over radio and stuff like that. That's the way we used to play it at home with friends. Just used to come up with that sort of stuff. So, but real basic stuff like that. So that was another thing I was doing. I also like to play BattleTech. That's another one where I get the same deal, though. It's kind of a reoccurring theme. I'm always getting the same, well, I play that, but it takes too long. And it's kind of hard to make a case for making FASA BattleTech fast, because but I do have some automated spreadsheets that make it a little bit faster if people are willing to play with them. I love BattleTech, so I could play that. But I'm trying to find a way. I mean, you don't really have to make up role-playing version of BattleTech, because there's a role-playing version of BattleTech already. But I wonder if you found a way to make those more simplistic. Simplistic, not the right word, but at least less complicated, that people might want to play kind of a RPG miniatures hybrid version of BattleTech. So that's what I was thinking of doing. So, but yeah, I do the world building. So actually, I can show people that. You want to see it? Why not? I was doing it last night. I haven't put anything up, but here it is. Give me a minute to load it. Let's see. Put on the old screen sharing. I think it works on this system. Hopefully you'll be seeing something. Let's see. Oh, still loading. It's a big one. I wanted a big continent. I actually made two. I wanted some sea battle stuff or something like that. So I made two. One will be on across a large sea that you have to take a boat to get to. Here we go. So I made this. Not finished. This is just the basics. But we were going around from section to section and coming up with ideas. This is one. Oops. And it's German, so it's not Woda, it's Voda. Jawohl. And it's a country that is run by a religious sect mostly. They have a government in place but it's very devout into the Order of the Secret Flame. And what you see here, the embers of the Secret Flame, is this kind of farm compound for criminals or people that haven't been faithful enough in the eyes of the order, and they're sent to Embers of Secret Flame to do some manual labor and to kind of be re-educated or indoctrinated into their religion, and then the religion is worship of dragons. This mountain range, there's a lot of dragons that come on a regular basis, annual basis, to nest and to lay eggs and to have their young. And when they do that, they're very hungry. And of course, when the eggs hatch and the younglings come out, they're very hungry too. So the people that are at the embers of the Sacred Flame are tasked with helping feed the dragons by bringing livestock and stuff like that up to the mountains to sacrifice to the dragons. So, but they're kind of what's the word? Totalitarian. Oops, sorry, hit the button. And not everybody's down with it. So there's a little bit of a resistance force in there. So out in Bost Village, up there in the mountains, there's a group of resistance fighters that are trying to oppose the order, and they're being supported by dwarves, because Elam's Caverns here is a society of dwarves that live within the mountains in a cave network. And this used to be a pretty large dwarven kingdom in ancient times, but it broke up, and this is all that's left of them. And they have Deep Forge Lake was part of the dwarf empire. So in Deep Forge Lake, I don't know if you can see it, probably looks like a black blob, but if you zoom in, I can't zoom in. Oh, here we go. The treasure chest. It's not very well. I got to get a better graphic for that. But anyway, it's supposed to be a secret cache of dwarven-made weaponry, heavy weaponry, that's hidden, entombed under Deep Forge Lake. When the Empire broke up and was being overrun by the humans, they stashed that stuff away, and now the Resistance is going to go and exhume it from Deep Forge Lake and use it to fight the Voda. So that's one of the countries. Then up here is Brixel, and Brixel's a kind of an Arthurian world, very similar to Warhammer Fantasy, Bretonnia or something like that. And they're very anti-magic, though. They're super happy people. They're friendly, lawful good. But but they had some problems with magic in their history, and they believe that it will be the the end of the world, that it'll break the planet if wizards and witches and such are left to their own designs. So if you come into that realm with a magic user, uh, there there are squads of witch hunters and stuff that'll go after you. And we made we being me and the co-host, we made the anti-magic people look very much like Peter Cushing in the old Hammer movies, kind of that kind of vibe, and but everybody else is very Arthurian. There's paladin knights and stuff like that. And then next there's this place is Stan, and Stan's very mysterious. Not very many people know about Stan. Sometimes people go into Stan to just explore, but they come out a little different, and they don't remember much about what's going on there. So nobody really knows exactly what's happening in Stan, and so but it's got defined borders. Those rivers is its defined borders. So it goes on and on. We've been doing this for about 3 weeks now, 3 or 4 weeks, and every week we have 2 meetings where people come together and make ideas and then put them together. So we had another guy make up. Whoops, keep using the wrong button. But up on the coast, we had a guy make up. I'll get up there. My computer. A whole area around here that was filled with pirates on one side. There's pirates in this area. There's some kind of tribal, primitive, almost voodoo-like Amazonian types on the on the islands, and then on this side there's a bipedal feline race that has the kingdom of Faber, and they worship feline deities, and we took deities that came from different parts of the world. Like there's an Amazonian like black jaguar deity, and then another part of the country they worship a kind of Siberian tiger Arctic deity, and so they look like the people like the gods that they worship. So it's a country, but they have different races and stuff like that. Yeah, so that's part of it. So I make these up, and then I put them through CS2 after I'm done, and make new stuff out of them. I've made a couple more that I'm not using in this world, but I'm going to make and put them up for sale, and they're going to be system agnostic. I see a lot of people saying I want content that isn't attached to any particular system. Okay, can do. So we're going to do one for fantasy. Well, more than one, but right now we've got this one for fantasy. We've got another separate for fantasy. We're going to work on one for sci-fi, just starting soon, and that one's going to be kind of a Mars thing. We want to do a kind of our own John Carter Mars take. And another one we want to work on that'll be a little bit easier to make because it's a little bit smaller, is a horror. We want to make not a country, but just a county, and do a kind of Cthulhu-ish type of deal, where the county is farmland and rural, but it has a fairly, not a major city, but a fairly large city in it, and fill it all up with all different types of weird nightmares and stuff. And we're not going to take anything from Cthulhu or from D&D or whatever. We're all the people that contribute are supposed to bring something that they had a nightmare about, or some sort of horror that doesn't come from movies or books that they can think up. We want it to be real original that way. So, and we'll take submissions from people. If you come to the live, you can throw out ideas, and we'll talk about the ideas. And people go, well, what if we did this? And you kind of work together with each other, and come together and make everybody's ideas work. So that's what we've been doing with that. It's a really fun exercise. I wish we could get more people involved. Um, so yeah, we've been doing that. Here, I'll turn that off. But yeah, that's part of that. So we like it. It's pretty neat exercise. But that's just one of the map makers. That particular aesthetic is just one we can do. We can do several other color combinations, and there's different uh, programs with different artwork that we use to do those things. So, but that's one of the other projects. What else am I doing? Oh, um, I liked kind of weird that some people find this weird, but I do like to do modern military stuff too. And the reason I do the modern military stuff, it's not wargaming in this case. What I'm doing is kind of a situation room type of thing. It's more of a government RPG exercise where people play a position in a government, um, and like a really advanced. When I say advanced, I don't mean advanced rules, but like a more in-depth diplomacy in the modern day, where you and a group of your teammates run America or China or Russia or whatever, and you're given a little bit of a backstory and told, here's what you need, is here's some ideas or of what Russia's looking for, what their goals are. You try to achieve them, in a kind of geopolitical simulation. And it can go to war. And then if you want to stay around and fight the war, you can do so. Some people go, well, if it goes to war, then I failed. Okay. But we're doing that too. And one of the reasons I want to do this is because there's a lot of panic going on and a lot of speculation going on about what's happening around the world. And I thought it would be an interesting exercise, and might give some people some insight and hopefully some solace in a world that seems to be very unpredictable and scary. Okay, so here's one of the best sets for that. And if you mention this to anybody else, they're going to go, "That guy's crazy." But hear me out. There's a an RPG. Well, hey, it's called Phoenix Command. You may be familiar with Phoenix Command. Phoenix Command has a reputation for being the most insanely detailed and complicated RPG. It wasn't really its own RPG. It was just kind of a combat system that you were supposed to use with our other RPGs. And it's a little bit ridiculous. But they made a mass battles that go with it, and that set of rules is not hardcore. It's very well done. It's very basic. It's very easy. It's one of the best 1980s modern miniature games I've ever played. Absolutely love it. But as soon as you say Phoenix Command, most people go, "Oh Jesus, that's the crunchiest thing ever made." But look for their mechanized warfare supplement, and it's not very expensive because because nobody wants it. But it's a sleeper because it's actually an awesome set of rules. Yeah, yeah. The rest of the rules are the most crunchy thing ever. It's ridiculous. It makes ASL look simple, but they have this mass battle supplement, and that isn't. It's really weird. That's where they decided not to go real hardcore, and it ends up being a really easy and fun, simple set of modern rules. One of the best, in my opinion, made in the '80s. I don't know stuff that's modern very much. Everything that I have experience with is from the '70s and '80s. But I would recommend that. And it's cheap. It might be hard to find, but it's probably not going to. Last ones I looked at were not heavy in collectible price because But like you say, most people go Phoenix Command. No thanks. I got a life to live, because the rest of the game is the RPG, the skirmish version of it is ridiculously complex, um, comparative to today's games, at least. It really isn't as bad as some people make it say, but it does. If you use the advanced rules, boy, you can get into like perforated bowels from bullet strikes and all sorts of crazy shit like that. It really gets hardcore. But they have these mechanized rules, and they're for World War II and they're for modern, and they are outstanding. I highly recommend them. Another one, if you can find it for a good cheap price, I think Noble Knight Games has one. Is done by a real good friend of mine. He's actually my wargaming mentor, Gary Bloom. It's called Total Conflict, and if they don't have that one, I know they also have Armored Attack, which is a little bit different but equally as good. Armored Attack does World War II and modern. Total Conflict is all about modern. And when I say modern, I guess it's really not modern. I guess I'm showing my age because it was made in 1984. So it's not World War II, but it's Reagan era modern. Um, the best set of ultra modern rules that go into the 2000s. That's hard to do. I would normally say something like Challenger, but I don't want to treat anybody like they're dumb, but that's still 1980s, 1990s hardcore veteran wargaming stuff. Um, you might want to look if you like 40K, you might want to look at Team Yankee, because that's kind of a World War III team 40K thing. It's from the same people that made Flames of War, and that's pretty cool. Um, and what's the name of it? There's one other that, now that I think about it, was called. The only problem with the other one is it's a great set of rules, but you can only get it from Europe. Um, what the hell was the name of that? It had a real weird name. The company did. It was some French company or something like that. I forget. Who's the name of this guy? Ian Clark. That's right. He's not French. He's British. But it's called Battle Group, and it's great. But it's in Europe, so you have to get it from overseas. But those are the ones I would do for modern. Um, or wait till I come up with mine, because I've got mine. Shameless plug, but I'm trying to do something with them that like I said, that makes them less crunchy, less war gamey, more war themed, and more of an RPG. It's still a war game. It's not all about RPG stuff, but I just thought that it would be more approachable. Wargaming in general would be more approachable if maybe you used RPG mechanics instead of wargaming mechanics. That tends to be the thing people look at and go, Jesus, this looks like it's rough. Okay, we can do that with the RPG stuff. So I'm making one of those too. I I started with just airplanes, and a couple of people were like, no, nobody wants to do that. That's what flight simulators are for. But I came up with an RPG where you're a fighter pilot, and you're sent on missions inside the plane. You know, sent to go bomb things and things like that. And if there's more than one player, then you're a strike package. You're a group. You might have one bomber and one fighter or an escort or something like that. And and but everybody says, nah, why would I do that in RPG? If I wanted to do that, I'd go buy a PC game or something. So okay. So I put it on the shelf, and then I went back and did like modern toy soldier stuff with, that you could use your toys with. I don't buy any of that micro armor stuff. When it was 1980, I bought Micro Armor because I had the money, but not for long. So I ended up doing the same thing, just buying old toy soldiers and stuff like that. But you could use those rules for it. Stuff like that. Team Yankee. That's a good one. I don't even know that many modern ones. I mean, even to me, modern, I mean, I don't want to sound like an old fuddy-duddy or whatever, but Mongoose came out with something with a modern war game, but that was like in the early 2000s, like 2010 maybe. I don't even know if they do that anymore. I was talking to the guy who wrote it. I had a contact to him. I never played them. I I had the stuff at my store for a while. People were buying it, but they never played it in the store. What was the name of that? It was British people. Battlefield Evolution. I don't know. I've heard mixed results from that, where some people said it was great and some people said it sucked. So I don't know for sure. But um, but yeah, that was another thing I was going to do. Um, modern wargaming, modern simulations. What else? I got a World War One. That's nothing other than Dawn Patrol, but I wanted to run it. Dawn Patrol. Uh, it's got a little RPG in it, and I thought it'd be fun for people to play if they found that stuff interesting. Was uh, you and your party are part of a squadron on the Western Front, World War II, and you're given a bunch of different missions. Each day is a different mission, and you have a character. And if they survive the mission, and they get experience points for doing things, and they can upgrade and get better abilities and things like that. See if you survive. Just kind of like a little mini campaign. I wanted to have another thing I wanted to do is I wanted to have a gladiatorial combat tournament where people would play. I have a combat system for my RPG that I want people to play. I think it would be fun just to see if I get people to try it out. And if they don't want to play a whole RPG, I was going to do this kind of system where you're a gladiator. I had one for gladiator, and then I had one for like jousting and those kinds of knights, where they mock battle each other for the king and that sort of thing. That was another one I wanted to do. See, Ben, at one point I had a lot of people here. I don't know. I hope I didn't bore them because I don't have so many people here. But anybody else that feels like speaking up, go ahead, speak up. I I always forget to tell people I actually have a system where I can bring you up and you can use your mic and your camera if you desire and be part of a panel and discuss things live. These like they let you do that. And I always forget to tell people if you want to do that, get up on the mic and talk. You can. I think what I do is I send you a link or something like that, like StreamYards. But we had 5 people on Rumble for a while. Somehow I get the feeling that was more about the Shadow Dark thing than anything, because they seem to leave right after that. Oh yeah, right on. Yeah, I'll send you some of those links in Twitter for those war games. You should check them out. Might like that. But yeah, good talking to you. I think I'll shut her down and see if anybody wants to play some Lotro with me. Have a good night. Thanks for everybody for coming and hanging out. Yeah, I want to start doing that. I want to start having some panel discussions with people. Let's talk about that next time. I'll I'll hit you up on Twitter. Yeah, sounds good. All right, I'm going to hit it too. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks everybody else for hanging out with me, and We'll catch you on the next one soon.